Well, performance comes first, and then your capital raising comes second. It's very hard to raise money if you don't have good performance, at least measured in the genre that you're in. So if you're a fixed income manager, you got to try to have good fixed income performance, or, you pick the genre.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Paul Gray of IronHold Capital, and today I'm joined by a true legend of the investment management community, Mr. Anthony Scaramucci.
A legend, true legend.
Proud co-founder of Skybridge Capital and the famous SOL conference, which has featured some of the most prominent investment managers and thought leaders in the world today. Anthony, thank you so much for coming on.
Hey, it's great to be here, Paul. Thank you. That's a nice introduction. You're a good man.
Thank you
And I
very
like
much.
the tie. You're looking good. Okay, you're not like my staff. They all look like they just. They're Jeremiah Johnson. They just got out of their campgrounds. They got beards like they're relief pitchers for the Boston Red Sox.
Uh-oh, I'm gonna have to talk to those guys.
Yeah, we're gonna start chopping those beards soon when I get back in the office.
Absolutely. Anthony, on this show, I've had the privilege of speaking to some of the most prominent individuals in the investment management industry today, many of which are very good friends of yours, like the famous short seller Whitney Tilson, the president of the Hedge Fund Association, Mitch Ackles, and the Einstein of Wall Street, Mr. Peter Tuchman. And all of them obviously said the same thing. They said that you're a terrific person and a very good and dear friend. So my first question to you is, how important in a business like in the hedge fund space is building relationships and building long-lasting connections?
Well, first of all, it's sweet of them to say that. I feel the same way about them, Paul. I think what happens is if you're in the business long enough and you have had the trials and the tribulations of the business, and all businesses have that, you start to bond with each other. And I think one of the things that we did after the crisis is we started the SALT conference. And so we tried to create this platform so that all of our competitors, fund of funds, hedge fund managers, people in the alternative asset management area could come to SALT and hopefully grow their business and expand their businesses. And so for me, that's very gratifying, because the goal of that conference was to have people meet each other, meet new friends, potentially help each other with business. And then obviously for many years we did it in Las Vegas. We want to have a lot of fun at an event like that. So all those guys have been at our events, and I think all of those guys hopefully have done business there that's been beneficial to them. But your point about relationships is the most important thing. When you are in trouble, imagine you're getting blown from the White House in July of 2017 and you're returning to your business. If you've got great relationships, people are there to try to help you. If you got terrible relationships, they're trying to step on your face and trying to crush you like an ant. And so it's a learning lesson to people that you got to try to be good to everybody, good to them on the way up and meet the same people on the way down. But I found that when I was having my ups and downs, whatever they may have been, my ups and downs, I got benefited from relationships like the ones that you're mentioning.
Absolutely. So Anthony, can you take us back a little bit and tell us what inspired you to start your own business, whether it was your first hedge fund, Oscar Capital, or later on your fund of funds, Skybridge Capital?
Well, I think Byron Wien, you may remember Byron, he's still around. I think he's over at Blackstone now, but Byron is now mid to late 80s. He's written some amazing pieces, but one that really struck with me is that he firmly believes that something happens to you from age 11 to age 17, that 5 or 6 year gestational period as you're transitioning from a kid into a teenager and ultimately on your way to an adult. You start to imagine what your life's going to look like, and you start to idealize it. And then most people try to pursue some element of that for their career. And so for me, I was, I had paper route. I was hustling at a Key Food, the local supermarket. I was delivering motorcycles by the time I got to be 16 from my uncle's motorcycle store. And I always just had this inkling, someday I'm going to have my own business. Now, my dad was a hourly worker. He operated a crane here in my hometown for about 42 years. And so, he used to come home quite frustrated about the lack of control over his wages, and he used to come home quite frustrated if we were in a recession, his wages got cut back, and if he was in a expansion, then we got extra Schwinn bicycles in the house, and it was out of his control. And so he was insistent that I go start my own business so that I could have more of these variables in my control. And so I guess from an early age, 10, 11, 12, I always wanted to have my own business. What drew me to Wall Street was salary. I was at Harvard Law School, and they were paying starting salaries of $83,000 a year to first-year students, and they were paying $100,000 at an investment bank. I had no money at the time, Paul, and I needed money. I would like to tell you that this was this in-depth analysis, but it was very shallow. I said, okay, this is paying me more. I'm going to try to get that. And I did. I got a job at Goldman Sachs, and then I got my career started. And the good luck for me is I just happened to love the industry that I chose. But that industry chose me. I didn't choose the industry. I chose it primarily because I needed money to pay back my school debts.
Very nice. And what role did Mario Gabelli, the famous value investor, play in initiating your first hedge fund?
Well, I mean, I told that story a million times. I'm happy to tell it again. I mean, I went to go see Mario. I was 31 years old. I went up to see him in Rye. He was very friendly to me. He had just had an operation done on his thumb. I remember the cast, and was sitting there. He was looking over at me, and he said, so what are you doing? And I told him, okay, well, you're not going to make it there. I said, I'm not going to make it there. He goes, no, because you're Italian. You don't have the right personality for Goldman Sachs. You're going to have to shave off all the sharp points off of your personality, and then you'll be like half dead. And then even if you make it at Goldman Sachs, they're going to blow you out of there before you're 50. So you should go start your own business. You're smart enough, figure it out, go start your own business. And by the way, you're 31 right now. You think 50's forever, but you're going to be 50 before you know it. And you're going to be very happy that you started your own business because you'll still feel young and you'll be vibrant and you'll want to work. And so I went home. That was like it was the Thursday before the Memorial Day weekend in 1995. And I went home and I wrote down, I always keep notes on a notepad. I wrote down going to leave Goldman Sachs at the end of 1996. Wow. So it was on a fiscal year. I'm sorry, not a fiscal year. It was on a November year. So its operating year ended November 30th. They've now switched it to because once they went public, they switched it to a fiscal year of January to December. Sure. So my last day at Goldman was November 30th, 1996. At the age of 32, I left with Andy Bozard, and we started Oscar Capital, which was Bozard, B-O-S, and Scaramucci, S-C-A-R. We took the syllables of our first name and we dropped the B and we named it Oscar Capital Management. And of course, it was the worst name in financial services history because every time we went to a meeting, someone said, well, why the hell did you name it that? Do you have an Uncle Oscar? Are you related to the Oscar Mayer Wiener Company, Oscar the Grouch? I mean, it was a really stupid name. But we did well, and we built a nice business. And what I would tell people, you got to get lucky in life. A lot of entrepreneurial success is providential. We had a bull market. The mid-90s was a bull market. And so we did make a lot of mistakes. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. But that bull market sort of hid a lot of the operating mistakes and some of the rookie things that we did wrong. You can hide a lot of mistakes in a bull market. And so we did quite well. We sold the business in 2001. Andy and I went to go work at Neuberger Berman temporarily. And then Andy left to start a venture capital fund. He's now retired, living up in Nantucket. And I started Skybridge in 2005.
Very nice. And for those that are listening in the investment management space, what advice do you have to building a team and hiring the right people?
Okay, well, I mean, this is a very complicated thing, but I'm going to distill it into three elements. And the first one is you got to hire people that are willing. First of all, you have to be willing as a manager to give a tremendous amount of autonomy to your people. So you got to hire superstar people that want to have their own businesses and think like entrepreneurs, and they got to have exceptional resumes. So all that's great. but you got to have people that really understand long-termism and a good corporate culture. And so
Right.
one of the things I'm proud of is my chief administrative officer started out as my assistant. She's been with me for 29 years. The guy that's been helping me around my house and driving me in and out of the city, he's been with me since 1997, 23 years.
Oh,
My
wow.
head of sales started Skybridge with me. He's been there. He's a partner of mine for 15 years. Ray and Troy, we acquired their business from Citibank in 2010. They've been at the company for 10 years. And so I think you have to find people where you want to work for long periods of time together. You're willing to accept ups and downs. That's not to say I haven't had fights with every single person I just mentioned. Of course, you're going to do that. It's human nature, but you want to be able to settle your differences quickly and move on. And you want to put the people at the company and the customers first. It's not cliche to say that. If you do that, you can have a very, very good life. You can have a very good culture. So one of the things I did at Skybridge that I'm proud of is I pay 100% of the health care for all employees. So if you're the Skybridge receptionist, you have a family of four, we pay your health care. And even though that may be almost, 2/3 of your salary in terms of what we're paying in healthcare, I don't care. My attitude is the company should be successful and profitable enough where we take no payroll deduction from anybody for healthcare.
That's
Number
it.
two, I'm Italian, like Mario Gabelli, and so I serve a free meal for lunch every single day at Skybridge. So the second thing I do is I give everybody free lunch, and then the third thing I do is we 401k maximize maximum allowable by law our profit and 401k contributions. And so my attitude is I want people to be healthy, cover their health care, and I want them to be incentivized to put a lot of money away for their retirement. And so those two or three things have been really bellwether things for our culture. And I think people love that stuff. When we bought the Citibank business, everybody was super excited because they effectively picked up a raise because they no longer had that deduction coming from their payroll.
I love it. Okay. And obviously, through Skybridge, you've spoken to some of the best investment managers there is in the industry. So, one of the questions I have for you is when you're looking to make a capital allocation, what kind of qualities or traits do you look in an investment manager?
Well, I mean, it's like what Simon Cowell says, when America's Got Talent or X Factor, or, things like American Idol, there's a grit that somebody has to have. That X factor in our business is sustainability, persistence, resilience, and discipline. So I could be very smart academically. I could have a good business model, a good investment idea, a good investment strategy. But here's what I know. It's like what Mike Tyson says, all strategies, when they come in contact with the enemy, they go by the wayside. Or as Mike says, everybody has a plan until they're punched in the face. Once they're punched in the face, they throw out the plan and they get very, very aggressive.
Sure.
And you need that in our business. You can't have a gun waiver. What is a gun waiver? I'm at the OK corral with you, Paul. I'm ready to draw, and I'm pulling the gun and I'm firing and I'm hitting the target with a steadiness. And
Right.
so you need that in the global financial crisis. You need that in the COVID-19 2020 crisis. You need that in the 87 stock market crash. You need to be able to keep your head about you, and you need to have resilience. In 2008, at the end of 2008, after having probably one of the worst years of my career, two friends of mine came into Skybridge and told me to shut it down. I said, you have redemptions. Your fund is too small. You should go work as a salesperson somewhere at a big hedge fund. And I looked at them and said, yeah, that's something I could do, but that's not something I'm going to do. I'm going to ride this thing until it goes to absolute zero.
Awesome.
I want to be the nuclear cockroach. The bomb has gone off and I'm still crawling around post radiation surviving. And so to me, if you think like that, and that's sort of a burn the boat strategy, right? When the colonists got here, the captain set the boats on fire, so there's no going back. So you have to now figure out a way to make it. And so to me, that's what I want in my money managers. Not just that they're smart and well pedigreed and they worked at the right places and went to the right schools and they've got a good investment discipline, but when they get punched in the face, are they going to survive it?
Got it. Okay. My next question was going to be, I'm sure you're well aware that there's reports out there that there's anywhere between 7,000 and 10,000 hedge funds here in America, which has made our space rather competitive. So I was curious to know, is Skybridge looking into other markets? Here at IronHold, we found a lot of opportunity in India. Are there any emerging markets that you're interested in?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily call it an emerging market, but we have a presence in the UAE. And so what I would call, Middle East and North Africa. We've raised some money there. We've looked at some business entities in that area. And I would suspect over the next 3 to 5 years, we'll be doing more business in the region. Last December, we did our first SALT conference in Abu Dhabi, which I thought was very successful. It's unfortunate we had one scheduled for December. We've had to postpone it because of COVID-19. We postponed our Las Vegas conference this year. We had it scheduled in May. We had to push that back as well. Yeah, I mean, so look, the good news is we will be back up and running once COVID passes, and we'll probably be spending a lot of time in that area. Lots of growth going on there. I brought the first Israeli venture capitalist to the United Arab Emirates. He was the first Jewish Israeli citizen to speak on a stage in Abu Dhabi. And he has a huge venture capital business, and we've struck up a joint venture with him. And so we're going to be investing in the region, and we're going to be, doing things that are Israeli related, Emirati related, Silicon Valley related with him. And I'm very excited about that.
That's terrific. Very nice. My next question comes from a good friend of mine that also works in the industry. And I think the investment managers that are watching are probably going to be very interested in this as well. You're well known to be one of the greatest capital raisers of all time as you built SALT and Skybridge from the ground up. What advice or strategies do you have when it comes to capital raising?
Well, I mean, listen, you got to have a good product. And so there is an answer to the question of the chicken and the egg. Like, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? Well, performance comes first, and then your capital raising comes second. It's very hard to raise money if you don't have good performance, at least measured in the genre that you're in. So if you're a fixed income manager, you got to try to have good fixed income performance, or, you pick the genre. So over the last 10 years, we've outperformed the hedge fund industry by about 30% net of fees.
Wow.
Over the last 3 years, because of what happened to us in March, we've struggled because we were down 24 in March. We've had a pretty strong recovery. So we're down probably 13 now on the year. I mean, there's still a couple months left in the year. We could close that gap. But it was a rough year for us, primarily because of what happened on the fixed income side in the month of March. But if you look at our record over 10 years, we've raised a lot of money, billions of dollars off of that record. And I would say there are three components to being able to do that. The first one is, in our business, these products are sold. They're not necessarily bought. Now, sure, Steve Cohen or somebody like Dan Loeb, when they were raising tons of money, people were buying that product because it had very good performance. But by and large today, because of low interest rates and where the ETFs trade to, you can buy a low-cost ETF. The Federal Reserve is pumping tremendous amounts of money into the markets, and all of a sudden these ETFs are levitating. Why do I need to pay the fees in a hedge fund? The answer is you should, on a small piece of your money, 3, 5, 8% of your money, you should have that diversity. As an example, Skybridge was up 81 basis points in September 2020. I think the market was down probably 4, something like that, 4, maybe 3.5 to 4.5. And so what I would say to you, you should have some exposure to things like what we're doing. So, but it has to be a consultative sale. You have to get in front of people repetitively. My joke about that is I was born one part woodpecker and I was born one part parakeet. Okay, so what do I mean by that? As a woodpecker, I'm pecking at the side of somebody's head, constantly annoying them until they'll give me money. And then I can repeat myself over and over again with great enthusiasm. And so, you need to be able to do that in money management if you want to raise money. And then the third thing is focus on the client. Focus on what the needs are of the client. They may not want your product right now. A result of which I tell my sales force, no spelled backwards is on. Someone tells you no, turn yourself on and say, okay, that's fine. It may not work for you right now, but it may work for you sometime in the future. And oh, by the way, I just explained to you my product. Are there 5 or 6 people I could go to in your Rolodex that may benefit from my product? And I think it works. I think that's a successful strategy. And if you stay at it long enough, you build a great business.
Absolutely.
You got to believe, Paul. Got to believe in yourself, man.
Right. And how important is it in regards to marketing? Because as every great entrepreneur knows, you could have the greatest product in the world, but if nobody knows about it, nobody's going to buy it. So how have outlets like SALT or the 4 books you've written or the TMI podcast, how have things like those helped complement your core business?
Yeah, I think it's been enormously helpful. I think that it's raised the profile. I think the only thing that's hurt me, which is positive and negative, is my political punditry. I would say avoid politics at all costs if you're in our industry. And remember the aphorism of Michael Jordan, where somebody asked him, are you a Democrat or a Republican? And Michael Jordan said, no, hold on. Republicans and Democrats both buy sneakers. Everybody buys sneakers. I have no interest in having that discussion. And so when you go into the political realm, which I have done, and I can explain why I did it in a second, but once you're in it and you're offering an opinion, you're going to alienate a certain group of potential investors.
Got it. Okay. And how important would you say it is for entrepreneurs to find a mentor for their business? I know somebody that was very influential to you was Mr. Frank Meyer from Glenwood Partners, as he was to many other great investment managers like Ken Griffin from Citadel.
Yeah. Well, Frank is an amazing guy. He's probably high 70s now. Amazing guy. He saw the great genius in Ken Griffin and helped him get his business started when Ken was still at Harvard. And so he was very helpful to me. He's a very, very smart guy. He gave me great advice on how to get started. Still talk to him. We have a great respect for him. He's very commercial, gave me great advice when I bought the Citibank business. And anytime I think about starting new products or things like that, I use him as a sounding board. And he is the classic gentleman of gentlemen. He is a world-class guy. And so, and I attribute my relationship with Ken Griffin, frankly, to Frank Meyer. We had that commonality, and therefore we were bonded by that.
Very nice. My second to last question, Anthony, is, whenever I speak to people in the investment management community about you, one thing they say right away is, Anthony's a terrific guy. He helped me with X, Y, or Z, or they know somebody that you helped for. So for someone as successful as you are, where does the need to give back come from? Not only financially, but also with your time and influence.
Well, listen, for me, I sort of feel like I've lived a very good part of the American dream. I hope I'm not saying that in a braggadocious way. I'm not trying to be braggadocious at all, but I really feel like I've lived a good part of the American dream. I feel like I came from a blue collar family. Even though I was only in the White House, it was a little bit of a debacle. I was only there for 11 days, but just think about my life. I was able to go to Tufts, Harvard Law School, Goldman, build 2 successful hedge fund businesses, start the SALT conference, and work in the White House in my life. And so for me, I am very, very grateful for all that. And so therefore, I feel it's important to try to lift other people, try to lift other boats. One of the things about the SALT conference, which I think is terrific, is you're bringing people in and you're mixing them, and hopefully that's helping them raise their profile. This gentleman I'm talking about, Jonathan Medved, who was the first Israeli to be on a stage in Abu Dhabi, he's built an incredible, as they've done these Abraham Accords, and they've now opened up a relationship and normalized the relationship between Abu Dhabi, or the United Arab Emirates, and Israel. He's built a very successful business as a result of that. And that gives me an enormous amount of gratification. So I'm a big believer, and hopefully the young people that listen to your podcast will listen to me on this. You're not in competition, you're in cooperation. think about that. It can be co-opetition or cooperation in the sense that there's enough money out there. There's enough money in the universe, if you will, and we can all attract a certain level of money, and we should all be fine as a result of that. And so to me, it's not a zero-sum game. If you get money and I don't get, start killing each other. Let's figure out where I can find money. Maybe you can help me find it, and maybe I can help you find it. And I think that's my message to people.
Awesome. I love it. And that brings me to my next question. For any of the investment managers that are interested in learning more about Skybridge, how could they get in touch with your investment team?
Yeah, well, you just go to skybridge.com. You could obviously you could reach us there. You could call our main number at Skybridge 212-485-3100. And my team will get in touch with you if you need to have a meeting with me. I'm happy to do it. I'm pretty much open to people. I meet with young people. I meet with old people. I have I always try to set away some time for mentoring and some time for development. We have a huge summer program for a company our scale. We only have like 60 people. Probably have 20 summer associates. Why do I do that? I do that because these kids need jobs. They need jobs during the, and what happens is, weirdly, they go on. I have a summer associate from 12 years ago is now a fairly big capital allocator at UBS.
Wow.
They were 20 12 years ago. Now they're 32, and they're working very hard, and they remember their time at Skybridge fondly, and they've been very helpful to our business. So again, you should think about your relationships in a non-linear way, not in a transactional quid pro quo sort of a way, but make them non-linear. And if you make them non-linear, what ends up happening is some good karma comes back to you. And sometimes you need that good karma when you least expect it,
Right. Absolutely. Anthony, I can't thank you enough for joining us here today.
Hey, it's great to be on. Paul, good to see you. Great to be on, and you be well.
Thank
All right,
you.
let's stay in touch. Hopefully we'll meet each other face to face.
Yes. Thank you.